Welcome to Biocomputational with Max. Today I want to discuss a difficult topic, something that's been like a festering, bleeding wound for 19 months, the war in Gaza. The reason I want to discuss it is that I find it's an essential conflict in the modern age that questions morality and also calls for discussion, but simultaneously, what seems to be missing is any kind of hint of innovation and resolution. Specifically, I'm talking about the fact that the conflict has all the elements of remaining inherently tribal. Of course, looking at world's history, perhaps tribal is the rule and non-tribal is the exception. But I think in modern day and age, the old solutions are no longer viable. And certainly the nature of communication and the population size impacts what's viable. So let me discuss this situation, which I think is also helpful for presenting an example of a discussion that begins with a certain presentation of facts that are separate from a judgment. And specifically here, I will focus in particular on historical analogs. And I think that's something of a tool that allows people to project and see both sides of the past, which can perhaps help us to address the present. So starting from the beginning, the AAA of Gazan horror starts with Amalek, which is, of course, one of the tribes that have attacked the Jews when they were during the Exodus wandering in the desert for 40 years. And the Old Testament tells us that the Jews received the commandment from God to smite the Amalek. And essentially, it was a commandment to be brutal. So that's the first A. And in connection to this, I should note that I find these stories in the Bible to be very interesting examples of not only history, but a change of morality. I remember years ago as a postdoctoral fellow in Texas, I met a very bright young gentleman who was also religious, and I wanted to know what he was thinking. Of course, since then I have been baptized myself, but that is a separate story. At the time, I was full of quiet but kind skepticism, I would say. So I asked him about a jingle song that I heard that was meant for the kids about walls of Jericho falling down. And we all know that also led to the slaughter of all people except for the lady of known profession. So these examples are shown in the Bible without consternation or shame, to put it simply. And I asked this young gentleman about the morality and ethics of it all. And his answer surprised me. He said that before the coming of Christ, there was essentially no morality. So I think it's not uncommon for faiths to try to surpass reason in terms of these ethical judgments. But I think time shows that the events are judged differently in time, and perhaps looking back at the face of Jesus, what's happening now with the Gazans can also give a pause to those who want to force through a solution to the problem. The second A in the AAA is this Alesia, specifically the battle or siege of Alesia in 52 BC by Caesar. It was the height of the Gallic Wars, where he ultimately chased some 80,000 Gallic warriors to a defensive fortification in Alesia. And there were perhaps some 40,000 civilians there in the area. And Caesar did what Romans often do. They fought with the engineering and with the brain. And he did something quite bold also. He enveloped the city, and then realizing that there would be basically a relief force of Gauls coming, he built an even longer fortifications. We're talking about miles and miles of fortifications. This map, as you can see, shows the complexity and the layers of terrain and also the associated pits. So they did all that and fought pitched battles on both sides. But the tragedy of the battle that's not often discussed is what happened with the civilians. The fighters inside the fortress of Alesia soon realized that they didn't have enough supplies. They did send the contingent out to get help, but eventually they also were forced to take the old, the sick, and their wives and children, all non-combatants, and send them out with hope and expectation that Caesar would let them out. Caesar did not let them out, and both sides sat looking at these unfortunate civilians perish between the walls. And I think this terrible historical example can give us a pause and consideration for what is happening. The people who would advocate for those who are suffering in Gaza seem to also prefer to fight on, just like the fighters in Alesia did. So one can question the measures to which they're going to go to achieve their ends. They will not walk out and surrender. They would rather see the terror unfold. Of course, the enemies, in this case, Israelis, are the enemies. So it's, I think, more natural to expect help to come from your own people. Yet the Gauls were in no position to let their families back in, and they were forced to let them perish in between the walls. So that's a terrible story, and I think this is definitely like the story of the Amalek is unfit for modern day morality and consumption. The final story is that of the Armenians. Some call it the first genocide of the 20th century. It's actually technically the second. The first one was Namibia. During World War I, in 1915, 1916, as the Ottoman Empire was losing and on its way out of World War I, They found a minority that sympathized with their enemies, namely the Armenians, who, because of their Christian nature, had a lot of ties with the Russian forces, who were, of course, part of the alliance. And the Armenians, about 2 million women and children, were uprooted and mainly tossed about. There were no massive slaughters to speak of, but they were moved to and fro without proper logistics. And of course, without enough supply and food. So that strains the system and the physique. And as you can imagine, many perished. So out of the 2 million, about 500,000 made it out. 1.5 million perished. So these are unfortunate precedents, and I'm bringing up this sad history, which Ataturk never, the secular father of Turkey, never really admitted to. And it's understandable that they still resist implications, but this unfortunately is something that can happen to anybody. It has certainly been the rules on the American plains among the tribes before the whites came and did their own massacring. And it was the case when Jews were the victims. But now they have the strength to be the perpetrators. So hopefully they have the wisdom to manage the situation, although they've clearly allowed it to go on a year or more too long. It's understandable why they want to prohibit those who would use force from simply getting their way by hiding behind the innocence, but removing the innocence altogether, the baby and the bathwater, is at this kind of scale of human misery is something that will leave a lasting stain on the state of Israel and the ability to leverage their essentially victimhood in the past will be seeded with significant moral ground. And the tactical advantages that are being achieved on the battlefield may pale in comparison. The Iranian state, which is perhaps the one of the biggest supporters of Gaza, and Professor Mirandi, who is described by some as the mouthpiece of the Islamic Republic, but is actually more independent, has in fact openly stated that they are supporters of Gaza, and he's much more calm about it compared to the spokespeople of the Yemeni Houthis. So some solution needs to be found. So here's to hoping that the innovators among that were always present among the Jews will manage to come up with some radically new solution beyond tribalism. This is not for me to uh, truly present solutions, but I will perhaps mention two more analogs as to what's happening now with the conflict between Israel and Iran that has gone hot. It does have two historical analogs that I can think of. One is the Battle of Britain. Looking at that battle, which was fought, of course, primarily with airplanes rather than missiles, there were civilian casualties, some 40,000 in Britain, 40 to 60,000, perhaps a million homes destroyed, and another million damaged. The British Air Force managed to destroy over 1,700 German Luftwaffe fighters, while losing a little bit over 1,000 of their own, for losses of 1,534, if memory serves me correctly. So it was essentially a draw, and one can expect that kind of inconclusive bloodletting on both sides, I think, in this instance. The other precedent that comes to mind is that of the Italians with their vendettas and their towers with narrow slits built in the cities, where the neighboring towers would basically snipe at each other. That is no way to live with your neighbors. And at the time, Niccolo Machiavelli wrote a seminal work on what it's like to be a ruler. Among many things there, he pointed out that one should not antagonize one's enemies until one truly intends to destroy them. There is no such capability or such plan in the case of either Iran or Israel, although Israel does feel threatened because it is a small country, and it has heard comments like it will take only a few nukes to destroy them, while they would nearly cause damages to a much larger Iran. But this kind of preemptive conflict is leading to a tremendous loss of goodwill among the people, with the human toll, and loss of goodwill around the world. So here's to hoping that Trump will manage to, together with Netanyahu, to come up with some solution to salvage their reputations and to avoid some of the sad precedents that I mentioned. But unfortunately, these kind of historical eigenvectors of, if you will, are patterns of human behavior. As I mentioned, tribalism has been the rule. So we need to help both sides to come through. And of course, this has economical implications, which is the main focus of this channel, as well as health and well-being. So that is something that, of course, is connected to peace and prosperity. And I will further rely on these kinds of historical analogies to discuss matters closely related to these subjects: health, wealth, and prosperity. See you next time.